Chachatara, Igbo kele, rienu, n'onu, wesonu. Onye iro anyị birikwa. Ya dịkwara onye mma, dịkwara ibi ya. Ndụ mmiri, ndụ azụ. Anyị na-asụ na mma zukwe. Ndị jere ebe anyị, udo dịrị ha ma ha ji wee bịa, ma ha ejikwa na-ama. Anyị na-asị udo dịrịkwa ha. Ka anyị rienụ ji ọhụrụ a n'afọ nke a n'udo, na ịhụnanya na ịdị n'otu na n'ọganihu. I'd like to welcome all of you to this important occasion today. This keynote speech address is titled A Celebration of Igbo Culture, Path to Meaningful Life for Igbo Diaspora, the region of Ndi Igbo in Yevle. Ndị be anyị, ndị wee dere ebe a, anyị nye unu ekele. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome. I am deeply honored to have this opportunity to share a few thoughts this day in what a true celebration of Igbo culture entails in our modern time for us Igbo diaspora here in Sweden. It gladdens my heart that this is a cultural event. There is a Swahili saying that whoever does not recognize his or her culture will eternally remain enslaved. May I seize this opportunity to express my appreciation to the organizers of this occasion for the time, energy, and resources that you have put into preparing such an event, and for the invite to share this reflection with you. Many of you, against odds, are working hard to keep our people together for our common destiny as Ndi Igbo. More importantly for us, the Igbo diaspora. The occasion we have gathered to celebrate is Iriji, Eating of Yam, New Yam Festival of Ndi Igbo residing in Yevle. Distinguished Nigerians, friends of Ndi Igbo, people of other nationalities here today, welcome and thank you for your presence at this event. Whether we are from the north, south, east or west of Igbo land, we are Ndi Igbo, people from the Bight of Biafra. My priest brother, Reverend Father Damian, for many of you know, is a die-hard Biafran. I've often told him that he cannot truly claim to be more Biafran than I am myself. Yes, while we all come from the Bight of Biafra, some of us are truly citizens of Biafra, the Independent Republic of Biafra, because we do not just come from that area called the Bight of Biafra, we were also born into Biafra as a nation. Therefore, we are truly the Biafrans. And anyone living around the Bight of Biafra, whether from Ebonyi, from Anambra, from Imo, from Rivers, from Ebonyi, from Abia, from the Delta, we are all Biafrans. The distinction oftentimes made between Igbo of Delta and others of the old Bende state is only a political identity. It is nothing to do with cultural identity. The great resource a people possesses to greatness and development is dependent much on their cultural identity, not so much on political identity, which is like standing on a loose sand. It is like the political delineation known as the people of the South-South, which is an anomaly in geography. There is nothing like South-South, which we have in the present day Nigeria, which is just a geographical and cultural anomaly. Before I proceed with this keynote speech, let me quickly make perhaps a statement that might be contested and even contentious to many Nigerians. Since independence, we have been told and taught that there are three major ethnic groups in Nigeria and that the Hausa Fulani are the majority. This is far from the truth. The fact is that there is no ethnic group called the Hausa Fulani. This is only a political classification that has nothing to do with the cultural identity of Nigerian ethnic groups. Studies today have shown that the largest ethnic group of people in Nigeria are Igbo. Hausas are an ethnic group separate from the Fulanis, just like you cannot say Igbo Ijaw people. Hausas were a vassal nation to the Fulani people who, led by Osman bin Fodio in their jihad in the name of Islam, conquered the Hausa kingdom and occupied their lands. As an agricultural people, the history of Igbos was defined by their relationship to the land and the ecology. We are gathered this day to celebrate what the Igbo consider as the king of crops, yam, ji. It is a sacred festival. Yam was planted by men while women planted cocoyam. It was a symbol of masculinity. Wealth in pre-colonial Igbo land was judged by how wealthy one was in yam, how many pounds of yam a man had. Men who had become wealthy in yam were received into the SAG group or GG group, king of yams. The aim is not to provide today the socio-religious background for the understanding of the divine origin and sacred nature of yams in the traditional belief of Igbo people. For the sake of our young Igbo and guests, permit me to recall the etiological and esoteric story about the revolution of yam. Iri Ji Ohoro is a Thanksgiving festival otherwise known by different names among various sub-ethnic groups in Igbo land. The ceremony variously known as Emume Ifejok, Iwaji, Ime Ahanolu, Emume Ahanjoko, Iro Afo, or Ofala. According to Uchendo, each community holds the right on the market day, whether in Afo, Nkwo, Orio, or Oke. Iri Ji Ohoro Festival ranks as the most esteemed of Igbo festivals. There are some myths surrounding yam as we have it in Igbo land. The origin of yam, the chief among all other important staples in Igbo country, is transmitted in a myth that articulates a revelation that Chukwu, the most powerful spirit of Igbo, communicated to Ezenri, the divine king of Uri land. Uri land is recognized as a cradle of Igbo civilization and the center of further dispersal. According to Ikenga Emefi Meto, the mythical narrative goes like this. Eri, father of Umri, and then Namako, his wife, were sent down by Chukwu, a sky god. When Eri came down from the sky, he had to stand on an anthill, as all the land was then a morass. He complained to Chukwu, who thereupon sent him an Oka blacksmith to dry up the land. When Eri lived, he and his dependents were fed by Chukwu, and their food was Azuigwe, fish from heaven. When Eri died, this food supply ceased. Eri complained to Chukwu, but was told that in order to get food, he would have to kill and bury his eldest son and the daughter. When Eri objected, Chukwu promised to send Dioka from the sky to carve the Ichi or facial castration marks on the forehead of the two children. After Dioka arrived and called the Ichi on the faces of the two children, Eri cut their throats and buried them in separate graves. 3 native weeks, that is 12 days later, shoots appeared from the graves of these two children. From the grave of his son, Eri dug up yam. He cooked and ate it and found it as pleasing that he fell into a display. That his family thought him dead. When he awoke, he told his astonished family what he had done. The next day, Eri dug up cocoyams from his daughter's grave, ate them, and likewise slept again. This is why Yam is called son of Umri, and the cocoyam called daughter of Umri. The firstborn son and daughter of Umri are marked to this day with the Ichi to commemorate this event. A young spirit, a Hajoko or Ifejok, was established to take charge of the products of life sustenance. The stealing of yam in Igbo land is a taboo, and digging up of land is also a taboo. That is why when people have planted yams in Igbo land, even if you're going to build a mansion on that land, you will have to wait until the yams are done, ready to be harvested. If you ever try to uproot any of the yams, then it is said to be an abomination, which you will have to appease the earth goddess Allah in Igbo land. Remembering our past, dear friends, helps us imagine our future. We are given this story in order to remind ourselves, those of us who know this, and our young ones, of our roots, where we come from and where we are going to. To imagine our past, we need to know our future, we need to know our past. Each of us, the Igbo diaspora, could see ourselves through Chinua Achebe's novels, No Longer at Ease, which was done in 1960. The great novel by Chinua Achebe, which talks about Obi Okonkwo, who leaves his village for an education in Britain. And then he returns back to Nigeria, where he worked, and then he was conflicted by the Western lifestyle. Things Fall Apart is considered as an African trilogy. Things Fall Apart, Proceeding Arrow of God. Things Fall Apart concerns the struggle of Obi Okonkwo's grandfather, Okonkwo, against the changes brought by the English. We all can identify ourselves with Obi Okonkwo in Things Fall Apart. We have left our homes, our Igbo land, to Sweden. Many of us today are conflicted, not knowing the cultures to imbibe. But Obi Okonkwo shows us what happens to one who has lost any trace of his cultural heritage. The novel begins with the trial of Obi Okonkwo on the charge of accepting a bribe. It then jumps back to time in point in departure for England and works its way forward to describe how Obi ended up in trial. The members of Umuofia Progressive Union, UPU, a group of Igbo men who have left their villages to live in major Nigeria cities, have taken up a coalition to send Obi to England to study law in the hope that he will return to help his people navigate British colonial society. But once there, Obi switches his major to English and marries and meets Clara for the first time during a dance. Obi returns to Nigeria after 4 years of his studies, lives in Lagos with his friend Joseph. He takes a job with the scholarship board and is almost immediately offered a bribe by a man who is trying to obtain a scholarship for his sister. When Obi indignantly rejects the offer, he is visited by the girl herself, who implies that she will bribe him with sexual favors for the scholarship. Another offer Obi rejects. At the same time, Obi is developing a romantic relationship with Clara Okeke, a Nigerian woman who eventually reveals that she is an Osu, an outcast by her descendants, meaning that Obi cannot marry her under the traditional ways of Igbo people of Nigeria. He remains intent on marrying Clara, but even his Christian father opposes it, although reluctantly, due to his desire to progress and eschew the hidden customs of pre-colonial Nigeria. His mother begs him on her deathbed not to marry Clara until after her death, threatening to kill herself if Obi disobeys. When Obi informs Clara of these events, Clara breaks the engagement and intimates that she is pregnant. Obi arranges an abortion, which Clara reluctantly undergoes, but she suffers complications and refuses to see Obi afterwards. Though set several decades apart, things fall apart no longer at this continues many of the themes from HMS first novel. Here the clash between European culture and traditional culture has become entrenched during the long period of colonial rule. Obi struggles to balance the demands of his family and village for monetary support while simultaneously keeping up with the materialism of Western culture. Furthermore, HMA depicts a family continuity between Ogbuefi Okonkwo in Things Fall Apart and his grandson Obi Okonkwo in No Longer at Ease. Both men are confrontational, speak their minds, and have some self-destructive tendencies. However, their aggressive streak manifests itself in different ways. Where his grandfather was a man of action and violence, Obi is a man of words and thoughts to the exclusion of action. Undoubtedly, many of the problems confronting Obi Okonkwo arise from his or his situation in the space between a diminishing colonial and emerging Nigerian nation. The major conflict of No Longer at Ease is the fact that Obi Okonkwo, the protagonist of the novel, is caught between two worlds, that of traditional African and that of a changing and new world that lives amidst two cultures, the English and the African. A young man is caught in between tradition and the ways of the West. Most of us have children who are like Obi Okonkwo, caught in this particular conflicting situation of today, not being aware whether they are birds or butterfly, not knowing whether they are up or down. Obi Okonkwo could be a great story. Things fall apart and no longer at ease. We could use it to teach our children our culture. What can happen when a person loses sight of his culture or her culture? A young man caught up as he is in this, which is entrapped in the dialectics of difference and identity. Obi finds that he cannot completely dissociate himself from the colonial culture, which he has inherited from his father, nor can he totally identify with the Igbo culture of his ancestors. Obi got into this conflict because of the education he has received in England. It is a higher education he has received that puts Obi in a position where he is no longer at ease. Many of us here today are in a situation of no longer at ease. No longer at ease takes place in historical time. But it is a personal story rather than a historical one. It is the story of each and every one of us sitting here today in this hall. It speaks to the condition and situation of Igbo diaspora, the situation we find ourselves today. The dream of every Igbo person is to go home and make his people proud. It is not just a life lived for oneself, but for the family and community. That is why we are Omunna. All the struggles that many of you go through, you starve yourself here in order to save money to build machine and ride luxury cars back home because of our culture. Chinua Achebe's attitude alludes to things fall apart to the reference and socio-economic value that the Igbo rich or poor attached to yam when he portrays Okonkwo's visit to Diji, a prosperous yam cultivator. Unse, Nwaki Bia, to loan some yams to sow in his farm. Okonkwo's request to Nze Nwaki Biaris. This is very, very important. And that is why I have pressed things fall apart and no longer achieves. This is a cruise of what Echebe says about yam in Igbo land. I have come to you, Obi Okonkwo says. I have come to you for help, he said. Perhaps you can all already guess what it is. I have cleared a farm, but have no yams to sow. I know what it is to ask a man to trust another with his yams, especially these days when young men are afraid of hard work. I am not afraid of hard work. The lizard that jumped from a high Iroko tree to the ground said he would praise himself if no one else did. I began to fend for myself at an early age when most people still suck at their mother's breast. If you give me some yam seeds, I shall not fail you. Nwaki Bia cleared his throat. It pleases me to see a young man like you these days, when our young youth have gone so soft. Many young men come to me to ask for yams, but I have refused because I know they would dump them in the earth and leave them to be chopped by weeds. When I say no to them, they think that I am hard-hearted, but it is not so. Aneke the bird says that since men have learned to shoot without missing, he has learned to fly without perching. I've learned to be stingy with my yams, but I can trust you. I know it is as I look at you. As our father said, you can tell the right corn by its look. I shall give you twice 400 yams. Go and prepare your farm. In this piece alone, dear friends, the word yam is employed at least 6 times, and not to mention the number of cognate pronouns in Nwaki Bia's positive response. Though a novel, from the text, there is an indication that yam, the king of crops, was a man's crop in the Igbo world, where yam title rites are performed, and during which time special titles such as Ezeji, Yam Chief, Diji, Expert Yam Cultivator, Mbasu Igwe, Iron Digger, Ojiake Eriala, a specialist hand weeder of the land, are usually conferred on men who have distinguished themselves as great yam farmers and keepers of land bounds of yam. Obaji. I've visited some Igbo families here in Sweden and in other countries in the Western world and in the US. And I met Igbo parents at various occasions who are ashamed to speak Igbo language to their children. These parents also feel ashamed when their children speak Igbo. This demonstrates today the cultural identity crisis of most Igbo people. Unfortunately, even among less educated parents, this is the case. Many of these parents are proud to say that their children do not hear or speak Igbo. Imagine a Swedish parent bragging that their children are analphabets in Swedish language. That a Swedish parent telling you, my children do not speak Swedish. Is it not stupidity? The stupidity of the highest order for Igbo parents who are refusing to teach their children Igbo language. Because Igbo language is the vehicle through which we transmit values and cultures of our people. Without that language, there could be no realistic cultural communication or any development of true cultural identity of a people. And that is why, through the vehicle of language, then we instill into our children what it means to be who we are. Otherwise, your children will end up being butterflies, thinking that they are birds. This has come to characterize many Igbo parents. Permit me to refer to Chief Amamanda Adichie, world-famous writer of Igbo origin, who proudly says that when she gave birth to her child, she made a conscious decision to speak only Igbo language to her daughter. Is there any Igbo mother in this hall who is greater, more famous than Chimamanda Adichie? There is none. Is there any Igbo mother in Sweden who is greater than this famous Igbo woman? There is none. But this woman teaches her children Igbo language and does not speak English to them because she understands. She understands that without the Igbo language, the children would never develop to their full potential in life. So when we refuse to teach our children Igbo language, or we are afraid to speak Igbo language, what are we saying? We are saying that we are unsure of ourselves. And parents who do this are parents who are very much unsure of themselves, who have been forced into, they believe they have been forced into a world where they have to play the second fiddle. They believe that by speaking Igbo to their children will not excel in life. You remember one of our ambassadors here, Nigerian ambassador, who had the mother is from Britain and the father from Enugu, Ambassador Amobi. He spoke Igbo language and spoke it very well. I don't think without that Igbo language he could have been who he is today. And that is a good example for us all to see that we do not lose anything by teaching our children Igbo language. Language matters. When did the Igbo language become something to be ashamed of? How do we take our language? How we take our language show the value we place on our culture and in that sense our history and civilization. You see, Isiago is not just our culture. Ogwaba is not just our culture. The beads you wear is not just our culture. They are cultural expressions. And cultural expressions must come from the inside. It is not just by wearing a cap or wearing beads and all that that you become an Igbo man. Or it is not just by taking titles Unze that does not know Otane Sekeneke. Igbo. The chief that does not know the culture and the values of Igbo people, then it is all to nothing. How then do we regenerate Igbo culture today? In the name of culture, people indulge in abuse and manipulation and exploitation, injustice. By the invocation of culture, Igbo men in Sweden are beating their wives and saying the man is the head of the house. That is not Igbo culture. And that is why we are witnessing divorces among Igbos in Sweden now. We have never in Igbo land And in our language, there is nothing, no expression like the woman's place in the kitchen. And when you guys saw it, the woman's place in the kitchen. Or not Igbo. Or not Igbo. Oh, you know, chat to Zirai. And hey, Jiabia. The woman's place is not in the kitchen. I am Otariana Nocha. Aha, Brian, Brian, and work in Igbo language, and God on Igbo language. So in the name of Igbo culture, so men are indulging in all this, which is anti-Igbo in every sense. In our popular imagination, we tend to think that culture is something static. Most of us think that culture is static, it does not change. Culture changes with the changes of people. We create the culture as Igbo people here and now. Culture is dynamic, it moves. It does not stay constant. Our culture evolves. It evolves every day. The change is when people decide to change it. Much of what we now call Igbo culture are fairly recent. If not, it is a little or less a degeneration of true spirit of Igbo culture. I wish to predicate my reflection today on the egalitarian and democratic values of Igbo culture. To continue, I hope to use some real-life events in the life of my father, Julius Ihane Jonoha, to highlight what I consider to be true Igbo culture. Igbo diaspora must strive to regenerate here in Scandinavia. In 1962, my townspeople, Ikenansisi, decided to build their first secondary school in Obo, called St. Paul's College. Today, Community Secondary School, Ikenansi. Then under Etiti local government. Now a local government of its own as Obo. In a secret meeting, the leaders of Ikenansi decided to appropriate the land belonging to our extended family and that of 5 other families. Our family land constitutes about 70% of the entire space. After the meeting, one of the elites of the town, Honorable B. Eleke, who attended the meeting, and an aged man and friend of my father came to inform him of the secret meeting and the decision to forcibly usurp our family land. They fixed a day when the land would be cleared, and information was passed to every other person in the town except those families that owned pieces of land in that space. On the said day, as early as 4 a.m., my father had come to hide somewhere in a large expanse of land, armed with his dead gun and a machete. He waited as the people assembled, arriving with their machetes and other equipments, and started clearing the land. Suddenly, a gunshot was released about 5 minutes after they had started the clearing, and everyone took to their heels, running helter-skelter. Not knowing where the shot came from, my father, who had taken them by surprise, followed with the pursuit. With this development, no one dared enter the land again. The leaders of the town decided to sue my father to the magistrate court at Abadaba, Etiti. The case came up and the charges were read to my father. When the question was put, guilty or not guilty, my father, with the speed of light, ran to the magistrate to grab the feathers. You know, they wear feathers in those days as wig. To grab the magistrate wig. And then as he reached, the magistrate with a quick reflex dodged, and the court police officer, then court Kotima, who was present, intervened in the defense of the magistrate. The magistrate then asked my father, "What are you up to? What were you doing?" Replying, my father said, "Can you see how you defended yourself just because of feathers? Because my father didn't go to school, you know. He didn't go to school. But he rushed to the magistrate just to take the whip. And the magistrate asked this question. And then he said to the magistrate, replying, can you see how you defended your cap, your wig of feathers with all your might? And this is exactly the problem between my people and myself. They have tried to usurp my family land. This is why I am here before you. That, in fact, settled the matter. The magistrate asked them to go home and negotiate with my father. The judge then, he mandated them. The result came. It became an agreement of freehold lease between the townspeople and my father. And one agreement again between my father and the Catholic Church that were entrusted to run the school. These two freehold lease, today, it calls my father as the landlord of the land on which community secondary school is built. For the past 8 years, the Catholic Church and the community have been having a running battle over ownership of this land. Nobody in the whole of Obo has any document, both the church and the Obo people, any document showing anything about that case, except those two documents signed by my father. So it is the only thing that the whole community has at this time that is helping them to decide the case. What is this true culture of Igbo? It is a culture of courage. Nwoke ọbụla bụ eze n'obi nna ya. Ma ọ gara akwụkwọ ma ọ gara, ma ọ gbafere ego ma ọ gbatara. Nwoke ọbụla bụ gịnị? Eze na ebe ya. That is the egalitarian spirit and the democratic spirit of Igbo people. To fight for a just cause, to fight for your right. Permit me to use and to be fearless in the face of opposition. Permit me to use another event in the life of my father to again shed light on the fundamental elements of Igbo. When I was growing up, this was before I started my primary school. One of my nephews, my father's nephew, in fact, by name Aaron, came to my father with a sack filled with money at that time. My father asked Aaron where he got the sack of money. Aaron told my father that a friend of his asked him to keep it for him. So my father took this particular sack of money and kept for Aaron. 2 years, when he took this sack of money, he wrapped it with zinc because it was a big sack of money. And he went into the forest and he dug a pit, wrapped the sack with zinc and laid the zinc in the pit and then put the bag inside the pit. Covered, to deflect attention, he planted grass and made it as natural. 2 years passed. Aaron came with a group of Kotima people to our place. Kotima policemen. He came and the policeman asked my dad whether Aaron gave him anything to keep for him. He said yes. You know, in those days, when Kotima people are coming to your place, then other people will run to come and see what was going on. And as they ran to our place, my father took them to that forest and he asked them to dig. He pointed, he said, dig, and they dug and they brought out the sack of money. When the sack was opened, people screamed because nobody in the town had ever seen such amount of money in his or her life. And they screamed, "Jesus, this could have made you the richest man in the whole of this town." Then they said, "Jesus, Onu Jurak. From that day, my dad got that nickname. Jesus Onu Jurak. But he replied, you know, this is very, very important. As Onu Jurak, he said, which is the mouth that refused wealth. My father told them that he did what he did for honor, integrity, which are the hallmarks of true Igbo. Honor and integrity. Today, Igbo na Igbo make of the here. No trust, no honor, no integrity. That sack of money could have made my father the richest in our town. But he said, no. Honor, integrity. Are there men of honor still in Igbo land? Are there men of integrity? Gị na nwanne gị mekọta ihe kedu ihe ị na-eme? Ụfọdụ ndị na-ezije ego n'ụlọ ka e wee rụọ ụlọ. Ịrụcha ụlọ nwanne gị achụpụ. Isi arụ agaghị arụ otu isi wee rụọ ya. Okwu gọbara n'ụlọ achụwa gị. Igbo mana diaspora mana ebe anyị ihe emebiela ọtụtụ. It is very important to regenerate and to recover our true identity. You will see that two persons in this particular hall will find it extremely difficult to do combined business because there is no longer trust. Because we have lost that makes us common. The area that holds our people together, we have no longer reference for it. And that is why things will forever be difficult for us if we do not rediscover what South African people call Mbutu, the Omunna. It is the one area that holds us together as a people. Today, Iriji is a rediscovering of the true Igbo culture. The Iriji is calling us to a communal action, a communal identity, a communal solidarity, a people who have a purpose in life, not just to cut yam, to roast yam and eat it. That is not just what we are here. We are here to regenerate, to cultivate that solidarity, that truthfulness, that honesty, integrity, honor to ourselves and to our brothers and sisters and our families. I learned from this that in social justice engagement today, I am involved in a lot of social justice issues, both here in Sweden and in Nigeria, in Cameroon, in the US, and in Great Britain. I see that it's running through my blood. Then this social justice issue that I'm involved, it is from that my father. Who is your father? Discover what made your father who he was. If he was a good man, don't lose sight of that value because of money. Because the way now is money. It is scientifically agreed today that Africa is the cradle of civilization. Long before Europeans and Americans have anything about civilization, Africa had kingdoms, and many have an appreciable level of civilization when Europeans were still living in caves. Astronomy, science and technology started in Africa. The Great Pyramids of Egypt show us, demonstrate this. The Great Pyramids, you need to be mathematicians in order to build pyramids. And a great wonder, the 7 wonders of the world, 1 or 2 that are standing today, apart from the Bible, they are all located in Africa. That is to tell us that the science of mathematics was already known. Science and technology started with us. Sadly, our civilization was abruptly interrupted by enslavement and colonialism. They interrupted this long development. And that makes us feel inferior. Our people are still under mental bondage to ourselves. We are enslaved and colonized. Colonization of the mind is still going on. To be true to ourselves, we must decolonize our minds. The battle of the mind is the greatest battle a human being can ever fight. When living in Westeros, I met an Igbo young man called Ahamefule. May my name not be lost. He was one of the few Nigerians living in Westeros in those days. This was about 2001. He later moved to the US. One early morning, he rang me and I answered. And I heard from the other end, this is Afar. This is Afar. Now, the name has turned, this is Afar. You say, one work, I'm up on your Afar. I said to him, you know, here in Sweden, we meet Igbos whose names are Chukwuka, Chukwuebuka, Chukwuemeka, who are still ashamed to answer such names, but now call themselves Chalk. I don't know whether it's Chalk or Blackboard or whatever. Chalk. What is Chalk? Chalk is not an Igbo. If you want to answer Igbo name, answer it. Don't degenerate or debase Igbo names in the name of westernizing them. Don't westernize them, it is an abomination. Think about it. It is this mindset that makes the Igbos to say that they originated from the Jews. It is most probably that the reverse is the case. The Jews originated from the Igbos. The Igbo is not one of the lost tribes of Israel. It is fair to say that the Jews were those who moved from Igbo land to settle in Israel. Because we are not slaves to anybody. Yet, the Igbo are not going to be subservient. The Igbo resist injustice, persecution, enslavement, and exploitation. This is demonstrated by the Igbo landing story. The Igbo landing story in the New World. Tragic yet resilient story of Igbo slaves. The Igbo landing is a historic site at Dobar Creek on St. Simon's Island, Glynn County in Georgia, the US. It is a site of one of the largest mass suicides of enslaved people in history. Historians say Igbo captives arrived in the Savannah, Georgia, on the slave ship called Wanderer in 1803. It is known that the Igbos marched ashore singing, led by their high priest. Then, at his direction, they walked into the marshy waters of Dobar Creek, committing mass suicide. Roswell King, a white overseer of the nearby Diaspora plantation, wrote the first account of the incident. He and another man, identified only as Captain Peterson, recovered many of the drowned bodies. Apparently, only a subset of 75 Igbo rebels drowned. 13 bodies were recovered, but others remained missing, and some may have survived the suicide episode, making the actual number of deaths unknown. The Igbo landing gradually took an enormous symbolic importance in local African-American folklore. The mutiny and subsequent suicide by the Igbo people was called by many locals the first freedom march in the history of the United States. This is what our people do not know. The freedom march that happened in the United States with Martin Luther King Jr. and all the rest of them was started by Igbo slaves. They were the first people who resisted slavery, resisted white supremacists. And because they said, the Igbos are not born slaves, we are not servants to anybody, they marched and drowned themselves in the river and said, the river take us home to Igbo land. It was the first in the history of the United States. It is important for our people to know this history, to understand and know where we are coming from. And to know that Igbos, the Igbo nation, Ndi Igbo, are blessed people. We should not in any way be playing second fiddle to anybody, anywhere. Wherever we are, we should stand with our feet and raise our heads on high. Because we are one of the most intelligent people on this planet Earth. That is who we are. Dear friends, I look forward to the day when we shall recover our integrity, honor, solidarity, egalitarian spirit, democratic culture that marked pre-colonial Ndi Igbo. It was a culture where it was an omen for a man to beat a woman. It was regarded as desecrating the sacredness of Allah, the earth goddess, to beat a woman. It also highlights that true Igbo culture that holds that mind is not always right. I look forward to the day when African culture will be treated with respect and the dignity it deserves. When young African women and men will no longer be running away to Europe and America for self-enslavement. I urge families here today to make a solemn vow henceforth to start speaking Igbo language to their children. Ya bụrụ na njere ebe na village school mụtakwu ya, nwa gị nọ na Sweden speaking Igbo, asụsụ Igbo agaghị eme ya ọrapụ Igbo mmadụ. And in fact, studies in Nigeria have also shown that children who speak their mother tongue in Nigeria make the best WACS exams in Nigeria. Yeah, it has been proved. And one of the most gifted or intelligent families on earth that is on Guinness Book now is a family from Nigeria. I think Edo or Yoruba family, who are one of the most intelligent that we have today. And they asked that professor, he said the secret is teaching his children their native language. So those of you who are denying your children this gift, you think that you are smart. In fact, it only shows the crisis of identity you have as a person. When we came here to Sweden, we were already preached, Damien and myself, for a Damien. And they said they wanted to teach us how to be priests in Sweden. We said to them, look, we are Igbo people. We have our values already. You can teach me the language, the Swedish language, but you cannot tell me that I'm less a person in any way because I'm not Swede. I will forever remain an Igbo man. We all have a choice. We are no children of a lesser God. We are Igbos, one of the most innovative, industrious, creative, egalitarian, republican, competitive, democratic people on the face of the earth. Our great people, firstly taken to the US, bravely decided to drown themselves in the ocean rather than to be slaves to any mortal. This is one of the major differences between the Ndi Igbo and most ethnic nationalities in Nigeria. And that is the conflict we have in Nigeria today between the Igbos and others, because we cannot be slaves to any other human being, whoever they are. It took the British 9 months to tame the north of Nigeria. The southwest, and the southwest, only 9 months for them to conquer the northern Nigeria and western Nigeria. But it took the British 30 years to conquer Igbo land. 9 months, the rest of Igbo land, but 30 years to conquer Igbo land. And how did they do it? Look at what they did. In order to achieve this, the British had to send a team of anthropologists to the south to understudy the Igbos. They acknowledged that they hadn't confronted a black race with such depth and intelligence. They had never encountered any black race with such depth and intelligence. Coupled with courage to confront the whites and learn from them fast. We could learn from them fast. We cannot be turned by an ideology of one man, no matter how highly blessed that man is. We are successful, no matter where to find ourselves. We are not given to putting limitations on our path. These qualities are the things that have made Europeans, Americans, and other developed nations who they are today. This is actually summarized by the former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, who compiles and summarizes the Igbos, Hausas, and Yorubas aptly. Obasanjo says, a Hausa and Fulani man sees Kano as his word. A Yoruba man sees Lagos as his word. An Igbo man sees the world as his village. Now, if we ask, what is Igbo culture? Proudly we can say, the Igbo culture, Igbo, it is more than Isiago clothes, red caps, beads, chieftaincy titles, offer symbols and drums, masquerades, and beautiful dance steps. Today's event, dear friends, is to show, it's not just a show of clothes and dance. While these are elements of our culture, they are hardly its fundamentals. Today, we remind ourselves that Igbo can and will regenerate its culture, values, as we are no slave to any man or woman. Once an echo, always an echo. Igbo has the responsibility of leading the regeneration of Africa, a free world, African Pan-Africanism, the spirit of South African Ubuntu. Let's not disappoint the African continent. The Iriji of today is a garden, a communal garden. It is a garden of solidarity. Let us, as we eat this New Year festival, Kachikwu Okike, Abiam, Nonyora Inibe.
Brothers and